She had a first-class ticket, a college degree, a clean dress, and impeccable manners. None of it mattered. The conductor looked at her skin and said one word: move. When she refused, he didn't just remove her from the train. He threw her into a muddy ditch while the streetcar rolled on. Her name was Eliza Vance. She was a schoolteacher, and she decided to do something no black woman in 1888 was supposed to do. She sued them. She won her case, and in winning, she accidentally created the legal foundation for Jim Crow. This is the story of how one woman's fight for dignity became the blueprint for a century of oppression, and how she fought back anyway. The year is 1883. The air of Clarendon, Carolina, is thick with the smell of coal smoke, horses, and the damp sweetness of the coastal plain. A piercing whistle cuts the air. The streetcar of the Clarendon City Railway Company, a modern marvel of iron and wood, clatters to a stop. Eliza Vance stepped onto the platform. She was the picture of dignity. 24 years old, her spine straight as a yardstick, a fashionable hat pinned to her swept-up hair. Her dress was dark, but of good wool. Her gloves were clean, and in her hand she held a leather-bound book and a first-class ticket. She was a schoolteacher. She was a lady, and she was tired. She stepped past the clanging open-air motor car and past the second car. That second car, it was the smoker. Even from the platform, she could smell it. The stench of cheap cigars, stale beer, and unwashed bodies. It was choked with men in rough work clothes, their boots caked in mud, the floor slick with tobacco spit. The company called it the public car. Everyone knew it was the colored car. Eliza did not go to that car. She, like any lady, continued to the third car. This was the ladies' car, first class. She stepped inside. The air was clean. The velvet-cushioned seats were empty, save for a few well-dressed white women at the far end who glanced at her, their faces impassive, and then looked away. The car was quiet, civilized. It was where she belonged. She had paid for it. Her ticket said so. She took a seat near the middle, placed her book in her lap, and looked out the window. She was on her way to the Augustine Institute, her alma mater, to deliver a lecture. She was thinking of her notes on poetry, not of a fight. The streetcar lurched forward. It clattered over the cobblestones, picking up speed. 1 stop, 2 stops. At the 3rd stop, the conductor entered. He was a large man, his face flushed red under his cap. His blue uniform stretched tight. He walked down the aisle, collecting tickets. He passed the white women. "Ma'am, ma'am." Then he saw her. He stopped. He stood in the aisle, his legs braced against the car's sway, and just stared. Eliza looked up, holding her ticket out. He did not take it. His voice was not a request. It was a dull, flat order. "You can't be in here, girl." Eliza kept her voice low, polite, but firm. "I am a passenger, sir. Here is my ticket." The conductor scoffed, a wet, ugly sound. "I see your ticket, but you're in the wrong car. This car is for white ladies." "This is the ladies' car," Eliza said, her voice dropping to a cold, precise steel. "I am a lady. My ticket is first class. The other car is the smoker. I do not smoke, and I will not sit in that filth." The conductor's face darkened. "I don't care what you call it. You move, now." "I will not," Eliza said. She turned her head and looked back out the window. This was a new kind of defiance. He was used to shouts or pleas. He was not used to being calmly, rationally dismissed. "I'm telling you for the last time," he growled, leaning closer. The other women were watching now, their faces a mixture of fear and cold curiosity. "Move to the car where you belong, or I'll move you." "The car I belong in," Eliza said. Meeting his eyes, "is the one my money paid for. This one, I am not moving." The conductor's face was purple. He reached down and grabbed her arm. His fingers clamped onto her sleeve, his thick nails digging through the wool. "You're coming with me." Eliza let out a sharp cry as he yanked. She grabbed the metal armrest of the seat in front of her with her free hand. The book flew from her lap. Let go of me. You have no right. Right? I'm the conductor, he roared, pulling harder. I'll show you right. He was a large man. She was a small woman. He braced his boot against the seat and heaved. There was a sound of tearing fabric. Eliza's shoulder screamed in pain as she was ripped from her seat. She did not go silent. She did not weep. She fought. This is an outrage. You will not treat me this way. I have a first-class ticket. I am a citizen. But he was dragging her down the aisle, her feet skidding on the wooden floor. The white women in the car did nothing. They watched, silent as their protector brutalized another woman. He dragged her to the platform of the car, the door open to the rushing wind. Get off! No, stop the car. You stop this car. He didn't. He shoved her. She stumbled, falling against the railing, her hat torn from her head. He shoved her again, harder. I said, get off. And with a final violent thrust, he threw Eliza Vance from the moving streetcar. She landed, not on the platform, but in the muddy horse-fouled ditch beside the tracks. She landed hard, the air knocked from her lungs, a searing pain shooting up her arm. She lay there, stunned, her skirt ripped, her gloves caked in filth. The streetcar did not stop. The conductor stood on the back platform, watching her. He spat a stream of tobacco juice into the ditch, just yards from her head. Then he turned, and the car clattered on, disappearing around the bend, leaving her in a cloud of coal smoke and utter humiliation. She lay there for a long minute. The only sound was her own ragged breathing and the distant clip-clop of a carriage. Slowly, painfully, she pushed herself up. Her arm, she thought it might be broken. Her dress was ruined. Her lecture, her dignity. A hot, clarifying rage burned away the shame. It was a rage so pure, so cold, it felt like ice in her veins. She stood up. She picked up her ruined hat, and she began to walk. She was not walking back home. She was walking to the only place that mattered. This story is not about that one moment. It is about what happens when a person who has done everything right is still treated as nothing. To understand why Eliza Vance did not go home and weep, you must understand who she was. Eliza was born in the final year of the war. Her father, Cyrus, had been a carpenter, a skilled slave, who had, through impossible work, purchased his own freedom and then that of his wife, just months before the emancipation. Her mother, Sarah, was a seamstress. They were not field hands. They were artisans. They were proud. They had taught Eliza two things, dignity and literacy. While other children played, Eliza read. She had devoured every book in the small library at the Freedmen's Bureau School. She had been the first in her county to go to the Augustine Institute, a small college in Raleigh founded for the children of the emancipated. She had learned Latin. She had read Shakespeare. She spoke with a clear, crisp articulation that made her own people proud and made white people uncomfortable. She returned to Clarendon as a teacher. She taught at the Colored Primary School No. 1, a drafty, two-room schoolhouse in the poorest part of the city. To Eliza, teaching was not a job. It was a holy mission. She was not just teaching reading and writing. She was forging citizens. She was teaching her students, her scholars, as she called them, that they were not what the world said they were. You are not chattel, she would tell them, her voice ringing with passion. You are the children of God. You will be doctors and lawyers and teachers. You will be ladies and gentlemen, and a lady, a gentleman, never ever surrenders their dignity. She lived those words. She dressed the part. She saved her small salary to buy good wool, not flashy silk. She read poetry. She never raised her voice. She was, in every sense of the word, a lady. And that was the problem. This was 1883. Reconstruction was dead. The Redeemers, the old white Confederate power, were back in charge, and they were building a new world, a world called Jim Crow. It wasn't yet law, not all of it. It was 1,000 daily cuts, 1,000 customs, 1,000 insults, designed to remind the black man, The black woman, that emancipation had not made them equal. The battleground was the public square, the train station, the sidewalk, and most of all, the new modern streetcars. The railway company had a rule. It was not a law. It was a rule. The conductor has the right to assign passengers as he sees fit to ensure comfort and safety, and comfort always meant the comfort of white passengers. The smoker car, that was the weapon. It was intentionally kept foul. It was a rolling pigsty. The company knew no decent person, white or black, would want to ride in it. By forcing all black passengers, regardless of their ticket, into that car, the company was sending a message. You are not decent. You are not ladies. You are not gentlemen. You are colored, and colored belongs with the filth. Eliza Vance had refused this message. She had refused it her entire life. She had refused it when the white shopkeeper called her, "Auntie, I am Miss Vance." She had refused it when men tried to push her off the sidewalk. She stood firm, and today, on that train, she had been prepared to pay for a ticket, sit quietly, and read her book. She had not been looking for a fight, but the conductor, he had brought the fight to her. He had put his hands on her. He had torn her dress. He had put her out, physically, violently, from the society she was a part of. As she walked, her bruised arm cradled against her chest. Her mind was not on her pain. It was on her students. What would she tell them on Monday? That she had been thrown in a ditch and had done nothing? That she had accepted the name girl? That all her talk of dignity was just talk? No, she would teach them a new lesson. She walked past her home. She walked past her school. She walked until she was downtown, on the cobblestone street, where the white-owned banks and law offices were. She stopped in front of a small, faded sign. Aris Thorne, attorney at law. Aris Thorne was a man with no allies. He was a white man, a northerner, a carpetbagger, who had come down during Reconstruction, filled with ideals about rebuilding the South on a foundation of true justice. When Reconstruction failed, the other Northerners had gone home, rich or defeated. Aris Thorne had stayed. He believed in the Constitution. He believed in the 14th Amendment. And this had made him an outcast. His white neighbors saw him as a traitor. The black community, they were wary of him. He was still a white man. He was poor, his office was dusty, and he mostly handled wills and small land disputes. Eliza Vance walked up the stairs. She knocked. Aris Thorne opened the door. He was a thin man, his coat frayed, his eyes tired but intelligent. He saw her. He saw her torn dress, the mud caked on her skirt, the blooming bruise on her face, and his eyes, they didn't show pity. They showed recognition. "Miss Vance," he said. "Good Lord, what happened?" Eliza stepped into the small, book-filled office. She did not cry. Her voice did not shake. "Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice as cold and clear as a winter morning. "I was just forcibly and violently ejected from a first-class ladies' car on the Clarendon City Railway. I am a first-class ticket holder. I was assaulted by the conductor. My person was violated. My property was destroyed." She paused, and her eyes met his. "I wish to sue them." Aris Thorne was silent. He walked to the window. He looked down at the street, at the very same streetcars clattering by. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice quiet. "Do you understand what you are asking?" "I am asking for justice." "You are asking for war," he said, turning back to her. This isn't a simple battery case. You are challenging everything. You're challenging their custom. You're challenging their city." "It is my city, too," Eliza said. "I was born here. They don't see it that way. If we file this, do you know what they will do to you? What more can they do?" she said, her voice a low, fierce thing. "Throw me in a ditch. They have done that. They will fire you from your school." Eliza's breath hitched. Her school, her scholars, this was the cost. "They will slander you in the papers," Thorne continued, his voice relentless. They will say you were the one who was drunk, belligerent. They will say you were unladylike. They will print lies, your neighbors, your own people. They will be terrified. They will shun you. They will say you are bringing the trouble down on them. Your pastor will preach against you. And, Eliza asked, and we will almost certainly lose. The judges, the juries, they are all white. Miss Vance, they are all redeemers. They built this system. You said, almost certainly. That is not certainly. Thorne looked at her. He saw her resolve. He saw the teacher, the lady, and he saw the warrior. No, he said, a slow, grim smile touching his lips. Not certainly. The company, their charter. It was written during Reconstruction. It was signed by a radical governor. And it says, no passenger shall be denied like accommodation based on race. The smoker is not like accommodation, Eliza said instantly. Exactly, Thorne said. It's a pigsty, that is the crack in the wall, not the 14th Amendment, not God, a single, poorly written clause in a state charter. He walked to his desk. But the cost, Miss Vance, it will be everything. Eliza thought of her students. She thought of their bright, hopeful faces. She thought of her promise to them, that a lady never surrenders her dignity. They are trying to teach my scholars that they are animals, she said, her voice hardening. They are trying to teach them that they belong in a pigsty. I will not let that be the lesson. I will not. She looked at Aris Thorne. File the papers, Mr. Thorne. We will teach them a lesson of our own. The news of the lawsuit hit Clarendon like a thunderclap. Vance v. the Clarendon City Railway Company. The reaction was immediate, and it was exactly as Aris Thorne had predicted. The first blow came from her own world. The principal of her school, Mr. Dubois, a man she respected, called her into his office. He was a good man, but a frightened one. Eliza, Miss Vance, he stammered, not meeting her eyes. This lawsuit, it's unwise. It is just, Mr. Dubois. It is dangerous, he hissed, his fear making him angry. The school board. They are all white men. They give us our funding. They give us these old books, this leaky roof, but they give it. You have put this entire school at risk. You have put these children at risk. I am fighting for these children. Eliza shot back. I am teaching them what I have always taught them, to stand for their rights. You are teaching them to be martyrs, he said, and I cannot have it. The board has they have ordered me. Eliza, you are suspended, without pay, until this trouble is over. She had been fired. She walked out of the school, her world tilting. Her scholars, they watched her go from the window, their faces pressed against the glass. The second blow came from the white newspaper, the Clarendon Patriot. The headline read, Belligerent Negress, Agitator, Sues Railway. The article, it was poison. It called her an educated, and therefore dangerous, type. It said she had been loud and vulgar. It said she had assaulted the conductor. It said she was a known rabble-rouser, put up to this by northern radicals, meaning Aris Thorne. In a single day, she had lost her job and her reputation. The third blow was the quietest and the cruelest. Her community. She went to church that Sunday. Her father, Cyrus, walked with her, his head held high, his hand on her elbow. Her mother, Sarah, had stayed home, too afraid, too ashamed. As Eliza walked down the aisle to her family's pew, the whispers started. People she had known her whole life. They turned away. They would not meet her eye. The pastor. His sermon was about pride, about hubris, about knowing one's place. He was preaching at her. After the service, Deacon Miller, an old, respected man, stopped her. Miss Vance, he said, his voice full of a weary sadness. You are a good woman, but you are a foolish one. You are stirring up the hornet's nest. And for what? A seat? We are building our own businesses, our own schools. Why must you demand to sit with them? They do not want us. Deacon, Eliza said, her voice shaking for the first time. They threw me in a ditch. This is not about sitting with them. This is about not being treated like cattle. My ticket was first class, and your pride is first class, the deacon said, shaking his head. And pride comes before the fall. You are bringing trouble, girl. You are bringing our trouble. She was an outcast, fired by the white world, shunned by the black one. She was utterly alone, but there was one small, brave voice, Mr. Gideon. He was the editor of the Clarendon Beacon, the city's tiny, one-room black newspaper. He was a small, fiery man who smelled of ink and danger. He came to her house. He didn't come to warn her. He came to interview her. Miss Vance, he said, his pen poised. They are all fools. The pastor, the deacon, all of them. They are so afraid of losing the scraps the white man throws them. They've forgotten how to be men. You are doing the Lord's work. And for the first time in weeks, Eliza did not feel alone. Gideon published her story, the true story, a lady's dignity, school teacher brutalized by railway conductor. He printed every detail, the clean dress, the first-class ticket, the torn fabric, the muddy ditch, the conductor spitting. The black community read it, and the tide, it began to turn. The whispers in church didn't stop, but now they were mixed. Some were still afraid, but some were angry. The trial was set for 3 months later. Those 3 months were a new kind of hell. Eliza had no money. She and her father took in extra carpentry and sewing. Harris Thorne was working for free, but he was also struggling. His few remaining white clients had vanished. Twice, rocks were thrown through Thorne's office window. Once, Eliza was followed home by 2 white men, who only disappeared when her father, Cyrus, stepped onto the porch holding a shotgun. But they did not back down. Thorne and Eliza worked every night. Their strategy was simple. They would not argue the 14th Amendment. That was federal, abstract. They would argue the Charter. They would argue about, like, accommodation. Their weapon was the smoker car. Harris Thorne, a white man, went and rode in the smoker car for a week. He took notes. He filled notebooks with the filth, the spit, the language, the drunken brawls. The day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed. The first 3 rows were all white men, employees of the railway, their faces sneering. The judge was Judge Harlan, an old Confederate veteran. The jury, 12 white men. Shopkeepers, farmers, the colored gallery in the back. The buzzard's roost was overflowing. Silent, waiting. Eliza sat next to Harris Thorne. She wore her best dress, mended. She was the only lady in the room. The railway's lawyer, a slick, expensive man named Breckenridge, spoke first. He was charming. He was folksy. Gentlemen of the jury, this is a simple case. It's about comfort. It's about safety. It's about rules. The Clarendon Railway. We love our colored folks. We do. We accommodate them. We give them their own car. A car just for them, so they can be comfortable with their own kind. But this young woman, she didn't want to be with her kind. She wanted to be with y'all's wives, with y'all's daughters. She forced her way into the ladies' car. She was loud. She was vulgar. And our good conductor, a family man, he just enforced the rules. He asked her to move, and she refused. She became belligerent. She caused a scene. This isn't about race, gentlemen. It's about order. It's about a private company's right, our sacred right, to run our business as we see fit. We provide a car. They ride in that car. It's simple. Then he called the conductor. The conductor, the man who had thrown her in the ditch, took the stand. He was clean-shaven, his uniform pressed. He looked like a good, solid family man. He lied. I asked her polite-like, he said, his voice full of false sincerity. I said, Missy, this car's full. You'll be more comfortable in the next one. And she just started cussin' me, cussin' and shoutin'. She called me names I ain't comfortable repeatin' in mixed company. I had to remove her for the safety of the other ladies. Eliza's hands gripped the table. She was cussing? She vulgar? Then it was Thorne's turn to cross-examine. Harris Thorne stood up. He was not charming. His voice was dry, academic. Sir, what is your name? Thomas. Conductor. You said you asked her to move for her comfort. Tell me about the car you wished her to move to. It's the public car. A fine car. A fine car, Thorne repeated. Is it not? Also known as the smoker car. Well, folks smoke in there, yeah. And do they drink in there, Conductor? Well, a man might have a flask. And do they spit in there? I can't control what a man does, in your estimation. As an employee, is the floor clean? It's as clean as any public car. Is it as clean? Thorne said, his voice rising, as the first-class ladies' car. Well, no, of course not. That's for the ladies. Ah, for the ladies. And was Miss Vance? Was she smoking? Was she drinking? Was she spitting? Was she cussin', as you say? The conductor was sweating. Was she behaving in any way, unlike a lady? She wouldn't move. She would not surrender her first-class seat. Thorne thundered. That is not a crime. Now, the charter. You are familiar with your company's charter? I'm a conductor, not a lawyer. It says, you must provide, accommodation. Tell me, Conductor, is a filthy, smoke-filled, spit-covered car, is that like a clean velvet-cushioned car? Is it? It's separate. Is it like? Thorne yelled. No, it ain't. The conductor finally burst out. Thorne smiled, a thin, cold smile. Thank you. No further questions. And then they called Eliza. Eliza Vance walked to the stand. The room was so quiet, you could hear the scrape of her shoe. She took the oath. Breckenridge, the company lawyer, handled her. He was not charming now. He was a bully. Miss Vance, is it Miss or Mistress? A few snickers from the jury. It is Miss, Eliza said, her voice clear. And you, Mrs. Vance, you are a teacher? You teach the little colored children? I am a teacher at the primary school, yes. And you teach them, what, to obey? To respect their elders? I teach them literacy and dignity and to respect the law. Ah, the law. And you think you are the law? You think you get to decide which rules to follow and which to break. I followed the law, sir. I purchased a first-class ticket. I sat in the first-class car. I was, by law, exactly where I was supposed to be. You were where you wanted to be. You were where you knew you weren't supposed to be. You were making trouble, weren't you? Weren't you, girl? He had done it. He had called her girl. Eliza Vance sat up straight. She looked, not at the lawyer, but at the 12 men in the jury box. Sir, she said, her voice not rising but filling the room, I am not a girl. I am a 24-year-old woman. I am a college graduate. I am an educator. I am a taxpayer. And on the day in question, I was a lady. In a lady's car, you ask if I was making trouble. No, sir. The trouble was made for me. The trouble began when your conductor, who just lied under oath, refused to honor the ticket my money had paid for. The trouble began when he put his hands on me, when he tore my dress, when he threw me from a moving vehicle into a ditch. Your lawyer, he has told this court that I am vulgar, that I cuss. I ask you, gentlemen of the jury, look at me, listen to me. Do I sound like a vulgar woman? Do I sound like a woman who cusses a conductor? Or do I sound like a woman who was treated like an animal simply because of the color of her skin? Your company charter promises like accommodation. I am here to tell you that the smoker car is a public disgrace. It is not like accommodation. It is an insult. It is designed to be an insult. It is a place they put us to remind us that in your eyes, we are not human. I am not asking for special treatment. I am not asking to sit with white people. I am asking for this company to honor the ticket it sold me. I am asking for my dignity and I am asking for $500 in damages for my arm, for my dress, and for the shame of being thrown in the mud. Like I was nothing." She stopped. The courtroom was silent. The jury, they were staring at her. They had never heard a black person, a black woman, speak like this. She had not appealed to their pity. She had appealed to their logic, to their law. The trial ended. The jury went to deliberate. The colored gallery was praying. Eliza and Thorne sat, waiting. 1 hour, 2 hours. The jury returned. In the matter of Vance versus the Clarendon City Railway Company, the judge read, "On the charge of assault and battery, we find for the plaintiff. On the charge of breach of contract, we find for the plaintiff." A gasp went up from the gallery. "We award damages in the amount of $500. The courtroom exploded. The gallery, they were cheering, weeping. Mr. Gideon was pumping his fist. Eliza, she closed her eyes. She had won. She had won. Aris Thorne grabbed her hand. "You did it, Miss Vance. You did it." She had faced the system, and she had won. The celebration, it was glorious. She was no longer an outcast. She was a hero. Her pastor, the same pastor. He praised her from the pulpit. A modern-day David, he called her. The deacon apologized. She was rehired at her school. She was, for a moment, triumphant. But this is a story about a system, and a system does not lose. It just adapts. The Clarendon City Railway Company, they paid the $500, and then they appealed. They appealed to the Carolina State Supreme Court. A year passed, a long year. Eliza was teaching again. The streetcars, they were tense. Some conductors cowed, let her ride. Others, they muttered, but they did not touch her. The company's lawyers, they were not arguing about a charter this time. They were arguing about something new. They were arguing that a state had the right to separate the races for the common good, for public peace. They argued that separation was not discrimination, and the state Supreme Court, all white, all redeemers, all men who had fought in the Confederate Army, they agreed. The verdict came down. The lower court's ruling was reversed. The court ruled that the railway company and all public companies had the right to provide separate but equal accommodations. It was a new phrase, a poison phrase, separate but equal. Eliza Vance had not just lost her case. Her case, her fight for dignity, had just been used to create the legal foundation for all of Jim Crow. The company had won. The system had won. She was back at zero. No, she was below zero. She had not just lost. She had, in the eyes of the law, caused this new, terrible ruling. She lost her job again, this time for good. The white community was triumphant. The black community was devastated. And this time, they were not just afraid. They were angry at her. She was the woman who had stirred the hornet's nest. And now, the hornets were everywhere. The new separate car law went into effect. The railway, they didn't just use the smoker anymore. They built a new car, a small wooden box with hard benches and no windows, attached to the back of the train. They called it the equal accommodation. Eliza was broke. She was a pariah. She was defeated. She sat in her small home, her books unread. There was a knock. It was Mr. Gideon, the newspaper editor. He didn't look defeated. He looked furious. He was holding a copy of his new Beacon. "Did you read it?" he asked. Eliza shook her head. He held it up. The headline was, "The Equal Lie, a tour of the new slave car." "I wrote it," Gideon said. "I took notes. Just like Thorne did. I measured it. I smelled it. And I printed all of it. The splinters. The smell. The fact that it has no stove. In the dead of winter." "What's the point, Mr. Gideon?" Eliza said, her voice hollow. "We lost. The law. The law is on their side now." "The court is on their side," Gideon said, his eyes burning. The law is just a story they tell themselves. So, we have to tell a better story, a truer story." He sat down. You You were brilliant, Miss Vance. In that courtroom, you spoke. Like a writer, you spoke with truth. It didn't matter, she said. It's the only thing that matters, he said. The courtroom. That was their world, their rules. We lost, because we were playing their game. We have to make them play ours. He pointed to the newspaper. This is our game. The truth, the story, the pen. He looked at her. You have no job. You have no money, and you have a fire in your belly that they could not put out. They threw you in a ditch, and you came back and sued them. You are the strongest person I have ever met. He slid a pad of paper and a pencil across the table. Your teaching days are over, Miss Vance. The courtroom days are over. But your fight, he smiled. Your fight has just begun. I can't pay you much, but I can pay you to write. I want you to investigate. I want you to find every equal lie in this city. The schools, the hospitals, the libraries. I want you to expose them, all of them. Eliza looked at the blank paper. She looked at the pencil. She thought of her father, her mother, her students. She thought of the cold mud in that ditch. She thought of the conductor's sneering face. And she thought of the separate but equal lie. She picked up the pencil. The courtroom. It had been the wrong weapon. The system was too strong. But a story, a true story. A story could travel. A story could light a fire. A story could, over time, become a movement. She had not lost. She had been transformed. Her refusal to be small on that streetcar had now become a lifelong refusal to be silent. Eliza Vance, the schoolteacher, was gone. In her place was Eliza Vance, the journalist, the warrior, the truth-teller, and her real work was just beginning. The story you just heard is a fiction, but it is not a lie. It is the story of Ida B. Wells. It is the story of Elizabeth Jennings Graham. It is the story of countless nameless black women who refused to be moved, who refused to be small. They fought. They lost in the courts, and they laid the groundwork for the century of resistance that would follow. They were the first spark, so we want to hear your story. What is your streetcar? What is the public space, real or digital, where you were told you did not belong? What was the moment you were told to move to the smoker car, and how? How did you resist? Share your story in the comments below. Because every time you tell your truth, you are honoring the legacy of Eliza Vance. You are honoring the resistance on the rails. Subscribe, share this story, and never, ever let them make you silent. Eliza Vance lost in the Supreme Court, but she didn't stop fighting. She picked up a pen and became a journalist. She exposed every separate but equal lie in her city. She documented the rot. She told the truth they wanted buried. The courtroom wasn't her weapon. The story was, decades later, other women would read her words. They would ride those same trains. They would refuse to move, and eventually, the system she helped expose would finally crack. So here's my question. Where's your streetcar? Where were you told you didn't belong? Drop your story below. Because resistance isn't one moment. It's every moment we refuse to be erased. If this story moved you, share it. The fight isn't over.